For this opportunity to represent officially and unofficially the surimi industry in India. Uh, we've been in processing of surimi since 1994, and we have now 3 plants in India covering the entire west coast and a little bit of the east coast. So we are also manufacturers of value-added surimi seafood, and we started finding resistance to sale from some of the larger retailers both in Europe and America right since 2013-14, where it became a qualifying criteria to use MSC certified surimi in order to even make a presentation to some of the retailers. And like the MSC gentleman has already described that it has become quite an important aspect of how one conducts international trade, especially as far as fishery is concerned. So in 2024, we were able to hire a consultant from the US. She, along with another gentleman from Canada, were able to make a pre-assessment study for threadfin bream, which was predominantly decided for the west coast of India, right from Gujarat right down to Kanyakumari. If I can get the first page up, please. I'm sorry, I don't have a PowerPoint, but I'm just trying to go up and down through our pre-assessment report so that some of the areas where could be highlighted. I think by and large, I have it here so I can read it from my own. So there is a system of scoring, and if you can go to the last page completely. If you go to the last page, please. Just above this, just one page above this. There is this one. Can you enlarge it? Okay, so if you can see this, you have a general system of scoring on various aspects, how the pre-assessment is done. Anything less than 60 is a fail, and pass is between 60 to 79, and pass with conditions is 60 to 79, and a full pass is the green, which is more than 80. And if you can go to the next page, please. So by and large, as of 2015, the overall score that was assigned to our stock was 70, which was, it is not bad, but it is not good either. And both in terms of stock status and stock rebuilding. The biggest area of concern that was highlighted was mainly to do with the management and the information that our fisheries has. And unfortunately, the FIP, although we tried to start some consultation with certain stakeholders, it went and stopped at the doorstep of the government because some of the management techniques and information, they were the custodians, or they are the custodians of that information, and that's what has kind of derailed the FIP until now. But to the point that we were discussing about the primary species and secondary species, and if you can see, if you can go back to 2.1.1, scroll up to that point, sorry. Can you please scroll up to the page 11? Yeah, and enlarge this. So the preliminary score is 80, but some of the recommendations that we were discussing about the secondary species, the P1 and P2s of that, again, it says that the data collection and discard of the sea can be strengthened through pilot scale programs and such and such. All these things are really beyond the purview of the industry. And since Indian fisheries is governed by state governments in every single state, so we have 5 different jurisdictions on the west coast itself. We really require some kind of a intervention from the government side to kind of bring these recommendations and start implementing them in order for fisheries to be certified as MSC. And the other problem that we have is a real lack of data. I mean, everywhere you see highlights of lack of information and management is what is finally the lacunas that were thrown out where the scores were 60 and below. Um, in addition to that, the second problem also lies where the bycatch per se, the definition of bycatch as per MSC, does not really fall squarely into the reality of Indian fishery, predominantly because every single species that is caught has its target market. And in a way, when the fishing boat, when it goes out for a 10-day fishing, every single time they put their net into the sea, it is targeting a particular type of species. My understanding about the kind of species that we procure is that threadfin bream many times is caught at night, and a completely different gear is used to catch ribbon fish during the day. But when the boats come back to the shore and when you're assessing landing of that particular boat, you can see 4 or 5 or 6 different species almost in equal numbers, caught using different gears but by the same crew and the same vessel. So how does this become part of an assessment? And how does this become part of, even if you're not certifying the bycatch, but then you're assessing the bycatch, but then the technique used, maybe the grounds used, and the nets used are totally different for a different species, but used by the same vessel and the same crew. So these are some of the, and in 2018, I think we had a consultation at CMFRI. I think the other thing that also stopped this FIP from going forward was that you were expecting a white paper on Nemifter japonicus to be released by CMFRI, which I think, I'm not entirely sure whether it was released. But even during that time, the knowledge of how individual species are caught and whether the single species standard which MSC right now uses is still going to be relevant in India was a big part of the discussion that we had. And I think, even when Ranjit was still planning this discussion, I had requested him to somebody from MSC to really kind of give us a greater insight of what it means for us to have a multi-species standard and what it means for, because the MSY, if MSY is the standard, I don't think the Indian data shows that Indian fishery is completely off MSY right now. Our president also mentioned that it has been defended at WTO and there's information has been given. So how do we break this logjam and really go into a standard which becomes suitable for our entire fishery and completely takes into perspective the kind of nuances that our fishing takes place when they are conducting their fisheries. So I am here to only raise questions. I'm not providing solutions, but we've been sitting on this this document for almost 6-7 years. I'm very happy that MSC is now taken the first step to restart this program. But I think these fundamental questions still remain as to A, how do we get the government to kind of implement policies which will allow us to get authenticated data, implement good catching practices, and implement the rule of law as it stands in the books. And secondly, how do we deal with the multi-species that we have going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun. Does anybody want to react to the questions that Arjun has raised? Essentially, we have problems with assessments of stock assessments of species which are caught in the same gear, that is multi-species, and also multi-gear, the same species being caught in different gears. So we have, most of our fisheries are both multi-gear as well as multi-species. And it's a challenge to assess the stock, and which can lead to management. So although we can put many of the blame onto the doorstep of the management is also unsure of how it can be done, because we are unable to provide good solutions.
Till now, all the data was what was available with CMFRI, right? But now with the Fisheries Ministry being created and the Fisheries Survey of India being tasked to do this kind of work, I think what Arjun was requesting is something that they should start working on.
You want to react?
To get the data.
Sir, Fishery Survey of India, we are mainly depending on CMFRI for collecting the data. Because the order itself says the technical input from CMFRI, because we don't have that much manpower to do the stock assessment.
Yeah, I think everybody knows that some of the policies that the government makes is based on some politics, but not on real things. So let's leave it at that. But these are challenges that we have with regard to our stocks and assessment. There are many scientific groups which are working at re-looking at multi-species fisheries management. It's tough, it's not easy. And meanwhile, MSC itself, I think, the mixed fishery standard did not really come out well. One of the reasons is that, one of the things that MSC was arguing for was a indicator species, which is the most vulnerable in the whole catch. But if you manage your fisheries based on the most vulnerable, because in this particular trawl fishery, we also have the skate, we also have rays, which are sharks, which are also very vulnerable. And if you manage on that basis, we would not be catching anything. So it's actually an indicator species approach would really not work in a really multi-species, multi-gear scenario. So MSC is also, I think, finding it difficult to address this properly. But at the same time, the current approach of MSC on a single species as a target and looking at the primary and secondary species is possible to do that. And I think the one example that he showed is about the Suriname sea bob fishery, which is a shrimp fisheries. And Suriname is just as tropical as ours. And I think you showed about 75 species are being exploited in trawl itself. So there are examples by which we can move forward. And I'm hopeful that by end of the 5th year of our trawl fisheries, Kerala trawl fisheries, we would be able to achieve it. So meanwhile, it's time for the tea break. We break now for tea and come back at 11:35. Is it okay? Good, thank you. Tea is served outside, just outside.